Allow me 20 seconds of your time for a quick intro. If you know anything about me, you know I really dislike Go, as I've made very clear on the When We Cry pod. But in this video, I'll be keeping my criticisms to only those relevant to the topic at hand. Because if I were to point out everything I believe is wrong with Go, we'd be here forever. Also, the finale will be totally different since I'll be remaking Go in a way that does not need Sotsu, so expect big differences by the end. This video will contain spoilers for Higurashi, Higurashi Go, and a bit of Umineko at the end. The biggest change we need to make with Go is the horrible idea to try to appeal to two different groups of people. Go really suffers from trying to catch up the newcomers while trying to satisfy the old heads, so the biggest change would be to drastically shorten the quote-unquote question arcs, those being Onidamashi plus Watadamashi plus Tataridamashi. The second thing that really needs to be addressed is Rika's and Satoko's psyche. I do believe it is in character for them to act the way they do in Go, but we see almost nothing of the train of thought that lead them there, so it comes off as Rika just turning into a bitch because, ooh, high society, and Satoko becoming a yandere because it sells merch, I guess. So you need proper time for their development. The third thing we need to change is how Rika is such a passive looper at the start. Yes, it could be argued that she was just waiting and seeing what happened instead of immediately trying to escape, but we see none of that. A single line of monologue would have been enough. And lastly, I don't know where Sotsu is heading, but I'll make changes to Go in a way that the story could conclude within the 24 episodes Go originally had. Also, take into account that my Go is not made for newcomers. Loop 1, Episode 1. Episode 1 plays basically the same as the original, but at the end, instead of the dumping side scene, we get a narration from Rika with various illustrating shots in the background, and the narration would go something like, "My name is Furuderica. I live in the remote village of Hinamizawa with my best friends in the world. Keiichi is super cool, Ren is blah blah blah, etc. I once was stuck in a time loop for 100 years, but at the end we all fought together and managed to win against fate." In this latter part of the narration, you could even add the flashbacks to the original like Go likes doing so much. At the end of this emotional monologue, she turns to the camera and in Bernd Castell voice asks, "So why am I back?" And then boom! Great recap episode for people who read or watched Higurashi a long time ago, and great twist at the end, the fact that Rika is looping again for some reason, and you don't have the rather comical scene of Red Eyes Rika. I don't know how well I sold the idea, but I think that in motion, this would be an amazing way to start the series. It's gonna sound hella weird, but it would have that AMV feel to it, you know, with just emotional scenes in the background, while also good emotional music and a narration. Yeah, I don't know, I like it. Loop 1, Episode 2. In the meta world, Rika is actually losing her shit. It's not like in the original Go, where she has a little breakdown for a solid minute and then she's back up again, because sure, why not? We need to give her time to actually lose her mind at realization that she is indeed back to this hell. Now, about what happens in Onidamashi from the meta world in EP2 onwards, I'd say we could cut all those things between Urena and Keiichi because it's really only there for the sake of twists. But more importantly, we could cut that because Go is a story about Satoko and Rika. So let's not waste time creating plot lines that won't add much to the story and instead focus on developing the main characters. So I think it would be great to first see Rika's account of what happened in St. Lucia, to then hear the truth from Satoko further down the episode list. It would be a great twist and a nice dynamic, the fact that each of them perceived their time in St. Lucia so differently. And it would salvage Rika's integrity as a character a bit. So let's have Rika reflect about her time in St. Lucia. Let's make her reminisce about how happy she was in St. Lucia, about how she chose that school because she had to act like a child for 100 years and she wanted to act maturely ASAP, which is something the original Go does not go into, leading some people to wonder why the fuck Rika would choose a school that she knows from Shion to be a harsh place. And lastly, let's have her think about how she approached Satoko multiple times, but she always refused her help. This is here in preparation for the future clash of perspectives between the two. To both explain how Rika died in this first loop, and drive further home the fact that Rika can't take any more of this looping hell crap, we could then have a flashback to the last moments of the first loop, where Rika is trying to convince herself that this is just a dream for sure, and she will wake up once she dies. So she heads towards her home to kill herself with a knife, which is something we never see her do in the original Higurashi. We never see her kill herself to escape a loop, aside from when she knows she is going to be tortured by Shion. So this would be a good way of showing she fears being stuck again, as much as being tortured in the underground Sonozaki thing, which makes total sense. So we see her enter her house, and that's when the memories end. Later on in the episodes, we will find out she actually died from a door trap Satoko had planted there, because everything in Go must come back to Satoko. But rest assured, it will make sense by the end. After this cut, we come back to Rika and Hainyu on the meta world, wondering why they are back. And now that we've given Rika a whole episode to show the audience the impact that being stuck has on her, instead of like 3 minutes, she can finally stand up and proclaim that she will face this again. And it will be hard. And for that reason, for the first couple loops she intends to have no expectations and keep her actions to Into Gathering. Loop 2, EP3. This episode opens up with Rika and Hinamizawa reflecting on whether she should trust Hainyu or not because of some suspicious things from the original, addressing that same suspicious behavior that the fandom has had more than a decade to become aware of. But she ends up deciding not to think too much about it, since she too went through a lot with her, and also she's the only one who understands Rika's situation. This first part is important because it satisfies the fans who find Hainyu not trustworthy, while also not shitting on those that believe her. This first episode of Not Watadamashi Hen would be an even faster version of it, only showing key events. To make sure this all fits together and doesn't feel rushed, we would have Rika provide commentary like, everything is playing out relatively the same as the fragments in which Shion goes L5. Or, oh, it's the Dolphin, I better talk with Keiichi. Oh, poor Mion, you should really just confess to Keiichi. Or, oh, Shion, you're so mean to your sister, hahaha. You know, like, just let Rika voice the things the fans would be thinking about while seeing all of these things they have already seen before. This way, we make Watadamashi both faster and more enjoyable. Also, we need to sprinkle hints that Mion is developing the syndrome every now and again, so we will do that in between these shots. We could even have Rika say, did Shion already switch places with Mion? This way, there would be foreshadowing for L5 Mion, while also not screwing up the reveal. I'm not saying the original Go screws up the reveal, I'm saying the way I'm structuring this could screw up the reveal, but if we do this, then I don't think it will. The reason I'm keeping L5 Mion and dropped L5 Rena is because unlike L5 Rena, L5 Mion actually matters in the end, because it's something that should not happen, and yet it is happening, so we need to keep that in. And lastly, to show this Into Gathering Rika decided to do, we could show her tailing Tomitake at night or something to see if he was doing anything relevant to these new loops. Loop 2, Episode 4. Rika decides to speak with Shion, who she thinks is playing Mion, because she is developing the syndrome. Then the opening plays and we're brought to the scene where everyone is wondering where Rika is. Then everyone goes look for her, we get the weather scene but well done for once, and the rest of the episode plays basically just like EP8 of the original Go, with Keiichi wondering what is going on, Mion inviting him to her place and going L5, showing the twist that this is actually Mion going L5 and not Shion, because of the calm way she acts despite being on L5. And that's the end of our EP4. Loop 3, Episode 5. This first episode of Not Atari Damashi Hen would play out essentially the same, with Satoko and Rika helping Keiichi not burn his house down with cooking. Then we get the baseball thing and the barbecue scene. That's when Rika finds herself thinking about the previous loop, and we get a flashback of her speaking with quote-unquote Shion. But because she isn't acting as erratically as Shion would, this is where Rika realizes it was actually Mion, but her memories end there. Because in both of these previous loops she died before Watanagashi, she hasn't thought about Takano being the killer. So this time she decides to see what she's up to. She sneaks out and goes look for Takano, ending up eavesdropping on her having a bonding moment with Tomitake, who convinced her to give up on the project before it was too late. Rika is very shocked and has no idea what is going on anymore. The episode ends with her being absolutely lost in this world she thought she knew so well, and asking herself, where did the certainty go? The certainty of Takano and that she would always succeed, not allowing Rika to live past the loops. If the certainty isn't here, then where is it? And that's where the episode ends. Loop 3, EP6. This episode opens with Rika narrating the fact that this time, nothing happened until the Watanagashi, where we are now. And we get a regular Watanagashi scene. I'd rather not have the whole Satoko plus Keiichi plus Teppei plotline, not only because it doesn't lead to anything major, but also because the Teppei redemption episode is very iffy, but most importantly because I don't think I can write Satoko making up with someone who made her life a mess in a satisfying manner, so I'll just drop it altogether. Then we get Rika looking at her friends having a good time, thinking about the fact that nothing has happened until now, and about the fact that Takano is no longer going forward with the plan. It's almost as if the world is trying to make Rika hope again, at all costs, as if it was written like this for that exact purpose. And after that last thought, we hard cut to the meta world. Rika isn't even sad at this point, she's just super done with this bullshit. Then we get the Hanyu talk about the sword, and about how she's dying, and we get to see Rika feeling a mix of emotions, like she should. In the span of an exposition paragraph, she just learned that not only there is a way out of this mess, but there has always been a way out of this mess, that Hanyu knew about it all along, and also that same Hanyu, the only person who understands the whooping mess Rika is in, the person she has been with for the 100 years she has been trapped in the fucking Higurashi loop, is about to die. And that's a lot of shit to take in. Like, let's give Rika some time to actually process this. And after all of that, the episode ends. Whoop 4+, EP7. The first half of this episode plays out pretty much the same as the last half of EP14, after Hanyu dies and the club plays hide and seek. Then at the halfway point, we see Rika thinking about how now that she has a way out, it's as if her will to fight has been renewed, because she can end it whenever she so desires, so why not try fighting some more? She thinks about how that shard has given meaning to otherwise meaningless loops, and how because of that these last 5 loops she has settled upon will kinda have more meaning than the previous ones. With her will renewed, we cut to the second half of EP15, the Death compilation. But we need to make some changes. First of all, the Akasaka fragment needs to be the last for a bigger impact, and because it wouldn't work well with the cut we're doing, since we'd need to establish Akasaka coming back to Hinamizawa first. So it would go Akane scene, Kimiyoshi scene, Angel Mort scene, Akasaka being introduced, then we'd get the new Rika thought about her supplicating to the world to at least spare her beacon of hope from L5, and then we'd get the Akasaka scene. And at the end we'd have Rika having a certified Kaneki moment. End credits. Another change we really need to make is for these scenes to be less extra. They look too goofy the way they are now. One good way to do this is not to show so much gore in a direct way. Using the shadows on the floor to show the action and then having the blood splatters go over them is a good way to do this. Or having a character go in for the kill and then hard cutting to a black screen with a loud scream is another. Whoop 8, EP8. Rika is alone in her house, sitting by the window with her usual wine glass with orange juice that totally doesn't have wine diluted in it. She's reflecting upon the fact that she can't trust literally no one at this point, not even Akasaka now. She takes a sip and remembers Hanyu isn't here anymore, so she doesn't have to dilute the wine. She reaches out to the wine bottle but gets a hold of herself. This is because she thinks back to how Hanyu would always cry out how wine isn't gonna bring Rika any good, and she realizes that without Hanyu's annoying begging she will surely drink herself to death. Then Rika realizes that the whole thing about how Hanyu could taste what Rika could taste was probably a lie to keep her from drinking so much. She calls Hanyu a liar and admits to not be sure whether that's such a bad thing anymore. She goes back to the window. Rika then recites the poem about the most unfortunate from the original Higurashi Vian. I was the most unfortunate. I knew that there was no exit out of this maze. Then, he was the next unfortunate. He did not know that there was no exit out of this maze. But all the rest weren't so unfortunate. They didn't know that they were in the maze in the first place. I think this is important because it talks about how sometimes not being aware of something is good, and it's fitting for how lost Bernie is right now about what she should think about and what she shouldn't. Then, since we're on the topic of Hanyu, I think we could finally, in 20 years of uncountable side arcs, finally get a flashback about how the first loop the two of them experience was like, and how Rika reacted to it. After this, Rika goes back to analyzing the past arcs. It's as if the events are being cherry-picked specifically to fuck with Rika, as if they are being brought upon by someone who knows her well. Could it be that there's another looper? Satoko comes back home, the audio is silent, then you start hearing her footsteps coming up the stairs. Remember, we haven't been giving hints towards Satoko Looper, so this is the big reveal scene. Rika tries to convince herself it couldn't be Satoko. What motive would Satoko have to do all of those things? They even went to St. Lucia together. Satoko comes up and is very happy, talking about how much she likes life in Hinamizawa, about how she loves all of her friends. She hugs Rika, and in a shot that shows Satoko's face but not Rika's because they are hugging, Satoko says how, most importantly, she wishes they would never grow up and live Hinamizawa. The perspective shifts, and we now see Satoko's back with Rika's face having the most oh fuck face imaginable. This will be our counterpart to the gun scene before going into Satoko Ashihan. Not Satoko Ashihan, EP9. Satoko Ashihan opens up with an after story for Matsuri by Ashihan, so I say this first episode should be an anime adaptation of Kokoro Yashihan. This is a manga arc that works as an after story. Saikoro Shihan is one as well, but that one is already animated. So all three sides of the Higurashi fandom, anime, manga, and VN, are already familiar with it. But Kokoro Yashi is manga only, so it would be good for Go not to neglect Hainyu's existence post Matsuri by Ashihan as much as it does in Satoko Ashihan. Because, let's face it, Satoko Ashihan acts as if Hainyu just never even existed. Because even when we get the reunion scene, no one mentions Hainyu. So it's like Hainyu never even existed. Anyway, an anime adaptation of Kokoro Yashihan would be great, because it also goes further in depth into Hainyu's relationship with Rika, something our Go is trying to touch upon. Not to mention, this arc also mentions how Rika didn't actually learn much at school this 100 years. She just memorized stuff. So it would be a nice thing to have to show how much work she put into going to St. Lucia. See how much we can explore just by not catering to newcomers? The only thing I add to Kokoro Yashihan is a line somewhere in the middle, just to throw back Sakura Shihan as a way to canonize it as happening before Kokoro Yashi. Not Satoko Ashihan, EP10. This episode would open up with the bridge from the last episode, which should end still in summertime if we cut the last pages. We had Hainyu moving away from Hinamizawa, and the story flows into the actual content of Satoko Ashihan, with Keiichi and Rena now being the club presidents, and showing how Satoko feels out of place on that new club. This is where Satoko and Rika decide to go to St. Lucia. We get the study sequence, we get the scene of them getting into the school, and the credits roll. Then, after the credits, we hear Bern scream, and I was happy, so why did you bring me back? And the scene opens up to both of them in the metal world. Rika is dressed in a mid-stage evolution between her Shrine Maiden outfit and Bern's outfit, while Satoko also has a new witch dress. Rika is holding Bern's scythe, while Satoko could be holding a branch sword resembling the Onigari no Ryo, and they look as if they are about to start battling. And the episode ends. Amazing cliffhanger, and I hope you like what I have in store for the next episode. Final arc, EP11. They fight on the metal world. Each blow is an argument they throw at each other. Rika tells her how she deserves to be happy, that Satoko doesn't know what she went through, that she loves her friends but needed some space and a different setting to live, since she had been pretending to be a child for 100 years, while also seeing her friends going insane and killing each other. She couldn't look at them the same way Satoko could. Satoko tells her that she struggled for 100 years, only to give up on the friends that helped her get out of there. Then Satoko tells Rika how she went to St. Lucia, a place she knew she wouldn't like, simply because she wanted to be happy with Rika, as they have always been, only for Rika to abandon her. That her brother is never waking up again, and that she feels lonely, that in that school she was far away from all her friends, only Rika was there for her, and yet Rika abandoned her. Rika counters with the perspective of the events that we've already seen, and Satoko counter-arguments with her side of the story. One example of this back and forth could be a scene where Rika asks Satoko if she would like help studying, but then Satoko refused, so it's on her. But then Satoko tells Rika that all of the other girls in class were looking, and Rika should know that Satoko would never be vulnerable in front of people she doesn't know, especially when that class already hated how quote-unquote vulgar Satoko was. Then, Rika says Satoko should have just come to speak with her in private then, to which Satoko replies she was waiting for Rika to take the initiative, as proof that she still cared about her friends. And it goes on like this, with diverse situations for half the episode. In the end, Rika wins and says, "You're 100 years too early to fight me." We gotta give this girl a badass moment. Then she ends up calming down and asks Satoko, "You're my best friend, so why did you do this? How did you even get these powers?" Then we flash back to the club reunion, and the second half of the episode is the second half of EP20, ending with the Elwa reveal. Final arc, EP12. This episode opens up with Satoko finishing the exposition, saying how she has read about all Rika went through, and also about how she asked Elwa for Rika to keep her memories, just like she does in the original Go. Then, Rika absolutely loses it. "So you're telling me you could have had all the fun you wanted alone, but you asked her to make me aware? You're telling me I could have been an unaware piece, but you made me a player as well? And why make it so hard on me? Why did you make everyone go L5? Why did you make Akasaka of all people go L5? How did you make even Mion go L5? Satoko then says she was just executing Oyashiro-sama's will. Rika is taken aback by this statement, and Elwa appears. Rika and Elwa have a little exchange about how Elwa was the one telling Satoko how to do everything like that just because it'd be haha funny, which to be fair, is a very Elwa thing to do. They also talk about how Satoko was being gaslit into thinking she had to do all of these wacky things or else the whoop wouldn't work. This is also where it is revealed that Satoko apparently can just snap her fingers and whoop, and that is how she got access to the vaccine that makes people go L5. And lastly, they talk about how Elwa is Oyashiro-sama but not Hanyu. Rika stays silent for a while and turns to Satoko. She then tells her she understands what Satoko has gone through and that the situation reaching this point is proof of how strong Satoko's feelings are. So they should really just make up and live happily in Hinamizawa. They hug each other and we see Rika with a just according to Kikaku face. This is at 2/3 of the episode. They spawn at home. Satoko says she will go shopping as today is a special day, the day their infinite happy days in Hinamizawa start. Rika is still thinking about Elwa, about her possible relation to Hanyu, and about how she probably knows about the sword, which would mean Satoko also knows about the sword. For this reason, Rika leaves the home and heads for the ritual tool storehouse. She opens up the door, goes up to the statue, but the fragment isn't there. Then we hear Satoko's voice, Rika. A chill runs down her spine, and in a single shot, we see both Rika near the statue with an instant regret face and Satoko at the door with the most disappointed face possible. Did you lie to me? Credits roll. Next time, final episode. Final arc, EP13. It opens up where the last one ended. Then we hear Rena's voice coming out to them, asking what they are doing and if they have forgotten about the club activity today since everyone is already waiting for them. The two of them silently agreed to pretend they had been playing and go with Rena. During the club activity, Rika tries to figure out where Satoko is keeping the shard since she must have it with her. Both of them keep up this hidden cat and mouse chase during the club activity while using the members to their advantage, like, hey Rena, isn't Satoko looking extremely cute today? And then Rena would, hug Satoko and that would give Rika an advantage to try to steal the shard. Rena takes notice that Rika is acting strange, and by the evening she says Rika should choose the last game so that she gets her spirits up. She uses this to her advantage and chooses hide and seek, since Satoko lost the last game and she would be seeking. Then, while she's counting to a big number, because that's just the messed up ways of Mion's club, Rika gathers Keiichi, Rena, Mion, and Shion, who was also there, and tells them the half-lie that Satoko has a rare illness that makes her hallucinate some things, and today, she is on an especially bad day. They can't call Iria, because that would agitate her and make it worse, so they just have to keep her safe until the effects dampen. But she's running around with a shrine artifact, thinking it's a memento from her brother, and she could get hurt. So, the club decides to help her. Cut to Satoko searching for everyone, and she sees Keiichi on all fours on a leash with Shion, on typical Higurashi fashion. No revealing outfits though, please. She approaches them but is on guard, and asks what they are doing. Rena approaches Satoko from behind while keeping a low profile. Shion replies to Satoko, saying it's a penalty game from another game and she needn't worry about it. It just takes priority over winning at this one. Satoko touches Keiichi and Shion and is about to turn around. Rena is shaking, thinking it's all over, but then Keiichi starts howling and barking, making Satoko jump for a moment and look back at him. Rena succeeds and hides. Satoko goes away to count them. Then, Keiichi and Shion look at Mion, who is holding her laughter in from atop a tree. Satoko is now heading towards the ritual tool storehouse, being certain Rika is there, looking for another shard. Then, your favorite Higurashi OST starts playing. Since at the first episode of the original Go we got the original opening to play, I think this is, free real estate. You can choose whatever your favorite OST is here. In my case it will be Why or Why Not. So Why or Why Not starts playing as she approaches the ritual tool storehouse. Shots of older Rika running towards it from the opening cut in every now and again. Satoko reaches the door. Rika is indeed inside. Found you. You'll have to touch me. I won't let you take it away from me. But I already did. Satoko is shocked. She reaches out to her hip bag and is even more shocked. In the heat of the moment, she rushes at Rika in slow motion. Rika thanks everyone for working together once again to win against fate, even if at such a small scale this time. She says she has learned a lot from all of them, including Satoko, and is about to prove it. Her last words are, Satoko, my dearest friend, let us fix this future mess. Satoko activates Rika's wire trap and the shard comes flying at high speed, going through both of them in a black and red scene. This scene then transitions into the scene where future Satoko is touching the statue inside the ritual tool storehouse, but instead of Elwa appearing, we see an out-of-breath future Rika at the door. They both apologize, hug each other, and the screen fades to black. The screen opens up again. We see Featherin's hand holding a cup of tea, as she comments on how she liked the twist on the role she played this time. Then we see Wamda's feet dangling back and forth from the big smoking room chair, as she says she really liked the ending, but she wonders, can't you make anything about that world though? Are the rest of the club members just gonna show up to 2 corpses inside the place? That's rather sad. Please, pretty please, make it a happy ending. It's been so long since we last saw Higurashi. Then we hear Featherin laughing and saying, do you get it now? What it means to feed the goats? Then we see a fragment of the club members turning up to Satoko and Rika's corpse in the Ritual 2 storehouse. Then, in that fragment, the blood turns into confetti, and no one dies. We then hear Bern's voice asking if this is enough, to which Wanda replies, yes, even Taco got a happy ending this time. There are still some people missing though. What about Tap? No. Fine, that's fair. Wanda then jumps out of her chair, as Featherin is leaving as well, and asks, hey, by the way, I found this super awesome game. We should totally play together. Hit me up if you're interested. And then leaves. Then Bern replies, yes, let's meet again. And then we finally see Bern's face, when something else cries. I love how it turned out. I don't know how you guys like it, but I love it. The meaning behind this finale is that at the end of the original Higurashi, Bern and Rika were metaphorically separated, even though Rika kept her memories from being a witch as she went on to live past that summer, because she wanted to forget all about what she had gone through and just live a normal life. The witch part got metaphorically separated. The witch part, Bern Castell, was livid at the fact that she struggled for 100 years only to be denied her happy ending, and as such wanted revenge, so she wrote this new addition to Higurashi. This may, however, sound hella far-fetched if you haven't read Umineko. Both in the original Go and on my Go, it seems everything that happens is made specifically to hit Rika where it hurts most. The biggest hints of this are 1. The fact that Go puts Rika in a situation that may look familiar but is totally new, like the fact that Mion goes L5, or the fact that Takano isn't the culprit this time. 2. The fact that she can't trust essentially no one, not even the most reliable person in the game board, her beacon of hope, Akasaka. And 3, the fact that she can't trust literally no one because even the most minimal characters like Kimiyoshi go L5, so she really is alone. And there are only 2 people who would know where to strike to hurt her the most. Featherin, who literally wrote Higurashi, and herself, Bern. I have more arguments, but those involve heavy Umineko spoilers, and I know Higurashi on Wiz wouldn't stop at a spoiler warning for Umineko, so all I'm gonna say is that there is precedent for this. You just need to think about what happened in the EP7 Tea Party. And this is the reason I decided to have Bern be the writer of Go. Featherin was below Bern this time, and it was Bern who told Featherin to tell Satoko to do those messed up things instead of just straight up killing them. This is because Bern herself did not have a piece this time, so she had to ask Featherin to participate in the story. Or I guess, since Bern Castell is telling Featherin what to do with Elwa, I guess you could say Elwa is actually a piece shared by Featherin and Bern. Lastly, there seems to be a contradiction in my story. If Bern wrote this tale to torture Rika, then why does the story have a happy ending at the end? As I made Featherin say, Bern has to feed the goats, one of those goats being Wamda in this situation. She has to feed them, or the story will most likely be rejected. And this concludes my explanation of my final scene. I have realized while editing that I did not actually explain the reasoning behind my game board ending. And so the reason the Satoko and Rika hug each other at the end and apologize to each other is because through my Go, they have ended up understanding each other's side of the story. And also through the quest they had in the meta world, they ended up, talking with each other and getting their feelings out. And so Rika understood that she wasn't seeing the full picture in St. Lucia. And by apologizing, she's not accepting Satoko's kinda toxic friendship. Instead, she's promising to pay more attention to Satoko. And with this, she is simply going back to how she used to be with Satoko before going to St. Lucia. Whilst Satoko, she has realized that, yeah, Reika did go through a lot. And she deserves this, She has gone through so much and she is finally free. She deserves this. And now, since both of them understand each other's side better, they are able to meet each other halfway and, be friends again and possibly even forever. And that is why I chose this ending. Most anime only have 12 episodes, but some get the 13th episode, so it's not hard to imagine Go getting the 13th one. especially when it managed to get a whole second season licensed even before Go finished airing. I cut a lot from the original Go, bringing it from 24 episodes to only 13, but that also means that if you like the way I structured it, you have 11 more episodes to add anything you feel like shouldn't have been cut. Also, as it's obvious, I have no experience with storyboarding and such, so for all I know, more episodes may be needed to execute my ideas. But then again, considering Go originally had 24 episodes, we have room to spare. And that's all. The end.